I've always been the together one in the family, the stable brother, the one who pays on time, remembers birthdays, keeps the fridge stocked, and shows up to every family emergency, whether I'm needed or not. My name's Nathan, I'm 34, and if there's one thing I've learned the hard way, it's that being dependable in a dysfunctional family is both a curse and a trap. Because once you've proven you can carry weight, they'll start stacking bricks on your back like you're made of steel, without ever asking if it's breaking you. It wasn't always like this. I was the quiet kid growing up, always scribbling business ideas in the margins of my notebooks, while my older brother, Zach, was the golden child. He had the charm, the jokes, the effortless way of making our parents laugh, even when he messed up. I had straight A's, a part-time job by 15, and a college scholarship. But somehow, Zach's B-minuses and broken curfews were just a phase, while my accomplishments were treated like background noise. Zach's the kind of guy who can sweet-talk his way into anything, but never seems to stick with anything long enough to make it work. Real estate license? Lasted 3 months. Crypto trading? Burned through $12,000 in savings and blamed the market. Now he's on to flipping vintage motorcycles, his latest get-rich scheme. Meanwhile, I spent a decade building a software company from a corner of my apartment, sold it for mid-7 figures, and reinvested smartly enough to never worry about money again. Of course, none of them know that last part. They think I do IT stuff and consulting, which is fine by me. I don't flaunt my success. I drive a used Lexus, wear hoodies that could pass for Walmart specials, and still split bills with friends down to the last cent. But my family caught wind when I bought a lake house 2 years ago, just a couple hours north of where we all grew up. It was meant to be a quiet getaway for me and my fiancée at the time, someplace peaceful, detached from the noise of work and expectations. But when we broke things off, the house just sat there for a few months, untouched. That's when Mom asked if she could host a little weekend up there with Zach and his kids. I said yes. Then came another weekend, and another. Before I knew it, they had a full 4th of July tradition going. Bonfires, barbecues, matching family t-shirts with our summer home written across the back. I cringed when I saw it on Facebook. Our summer home. Like it was theirs. Like I hadn't paid every mortgage, every repair, every snowplow in the off-season. Still, I didn't say anything. I figured it made them happy. And honestly, a part of me liked the idea of giving them something nice. It felt good to be the one who could afford that now. They never had much growing up. Mom worked double shifts as a nurse. Dad left when I was 10, and we learned early how to stretch a dollar. I thought maybe I could give back in a way they'd never asked for, but always wanted. That was my first mistake, thinking generosity would be met with gratitude. It started small. A forgotten thank you here, a passive-aggressive joke there. Zach posted a picture on Instagram last summer with the caption, "Another weekend at the family lake house. Thanks, Nate." Laughing emoji. I remember staring at the emoji like it was some kind of insult dressed as a joke. But I let it go. Again. That was mistake number 2. Then came the vacation dinner. We were in Michigan for a week. Me, Zach, his wife Amanda, their 2 kids, and our mom. I hadn't even planned on going. I was working on a project with a tight deadline, and I told them I might drop by for a day or 2, tops. But Mom insisted. "It's the first time in years we'll all be together, Nathan. Just come, please." She used that tone that makes you feel like a bad son if you say no. So I booked a room at a nearby inn, didn't want to crowd them at the lake house, and agreed to join them for dinner on the last night. The restaurant was one of those rustic luxury places with exposed beams, hand-cut steaks, and wine that cost more per glass than I spend on groceries in a week. I showed up in jeans and a Henley. Zach wore a new watch I'm 90% sure he didn't buy himself. The kids were on their iPads the entire time. Mom ordered lobster. Amanda got the filet and a bottle of Chardonnay, just to share, she said, though she polished off most of it herself. Conversation was surface level. Zach talked about his motorcycle flips and casually asked if I knew any angel investors who might be interested in backing his expansion idea. I said I didn't. He laughed. "Man, with your contacts, you could probably bankroll the whole thing yourself." I smiled, took a sip of my water, and said nothing. When the server brought the check, he laid it squarely in front of me. $2,100. I blinked. Before I could say a word, Zach grinned and nudged the bill toward me. "You've got this, right? You're the rich one," he said with a laugh, like he was telling an inside joke everyone already knew. Amanda chuckled. Mom didn't even look surprised. She just nodded, like it was obvious. I looked around the table. No one moved. No one even pretended to reach for their wallet. The kids were still glued to their screens. My fork was still halfway to the plate. And in that moment, something in me snapped. Not with anger, not even disappointment. Just a kind of silent clarity, like flipping a switch in a dark room and seeing all the dust you've been pretending isn't there. I reached for my card, slid it into the leather check holder, and stood up slowly. I'll cover this, I said. But just so you all know. I paused, watching their faces shift from smug to curious. The lake house you've all been using? I'm listing it next week. Silence. Amanda froze with her wine glass midair. Zach's grin faltered. Mom's eyes narrowed, like she was trying to figure out if I was joking. I wasn't. I turned and walked out before anyone could say a word. But that was just the first domino. And trust me, there were a lot more to fall. I didn't hear from anyone that night. No text from Zach. No thank you from Mom. Not even a passive-aggressive emoji from Amanda. Just silence. And to be honest, that silence said more than words ever could. It told me that what I'd done, reminding them that the lake house wasn't theirs, wasn't just inconvenient. It was betrayal. In their eyes. I drove back to the inn, kicked off my shoes, and lay on the bed staring at the ceiling. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was something worse. Tired. Tired in a way that makes you feel like you're finally seeing the truth after years of pretending not to. Like something had cracked open, and now everything was just too loud. I didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, I checked out early. I figured they'd all be asleep or too embarrassed to face me. I didn't want a dramatic farewell or another guilt trip breakfast where Mom would sip her coffee and say, "You really embarrassed your brother last night." I just wanted to be gone before they could drag me back into whatever performance they were rehearsing next. But as I pulled into the driveway at the lake house, I noticed something off. There were towels hanging from the railing, beach chairs still scattered on the grass, and beer bottles clinking in the recycling bin. It was 8 a.m. on a Thursday. They hadn't left. I walked in to find Zach in my kitchen, shirtless, cracking eggs into a pan like he owned the place. Music was playing. Amanda was curled up on the couch with a blanket I know she didn't bring, and one of their kids was still asleep in my guest room, door wide open, feet sticking out from under a Spider-Man blanket. The house looked lived in. Too lived in. "Morning," Zach said, without turning around. "Coffee's fresh." "I thought you were leaving this morning," I said. Zach chuckled. "Yeah, we were, but we figured we'd stay an extra day or two. The kids love it here." Amanda piped up without looking at me. "It's not like you're using the place anyway." I blinked. "I'm listing the house." I meant what I said. Zach finally turned. "Dude, come on. You were obviously just ticked last night. Don't be petty." "I'm not being petty," I replied. "I've been patient for 2 years." "Yeah, patient and controlling," Amanda added, her voice sharp now. "You act like we're freeloading, but we're family. That's what family does, shares." I stood there in the middle of my own living room and realized something important. They didn't think they were taking advantage of me. They thought they were entitled to it. That this house, this comfort, this stability, my stability, was theirs by birthright. I didn't say another word. I turned, walked out the front door, got in my car, and drove home. That weekend, I called a real estate agent. We met Monday. By Friday, the photographer was scheduled, the listing drafted. I kept it quiet, didn't tell anyone else. I wasn't in the mood for drama. But drama doesn't care if you're in the mood. On Sunday afternoon, Mom called. "I heard from Zach that you're really listing the lake house," she said. No hello, no small talk. Straight to the guilt. "I am," I replied flatly. "Nathan, that house has meant so much to this family. To you, maybe," I cut in. "To me, it's been a headache. A free Airbnb with no gratitude and no boundaries." "You're overreacting," she said. "You've always been sensitive." That word. Sensitive. The one she used when I got upset as a kid because Zach took my things and broke them. The one she used when I asked why no one came to my college graduation. The one she used when I dared to ask for respect. "You raised me to think being quiet was the same as being respected," I said slowly. "It's not." She didn't respond. I could feel her icy disapproval radiating through the phone. Later that week, I started getting texts. "Zach, dude, the kids are gonna be crushed. You're seriously kicking them out of their favorite place?" "Amanda, so I guess we just find a hotel for Labor Day now? Real nice." "Mom, your father would have been disappointed in you." And that one stung. Because my dad walked out when I was 10 and never looked back. Using him as a moral compass? That was low, even for her. But I didn't reply. Instead, I started pulling receipts. Property taxes, maintenance, utilities, furniture costs. Every dollar I'd spent turning that cabin into the place they so lovingly called our summer home. I didn't need to show it to them. I just needed to remind myself that this wasn't about being selfish. It was about finally drawing a line. The next time I drove up to the lake house, it was to meet the stager. I didn't even knock when I walked in. I just pushed the door open and paused in the entryway. Zach was there. So was Amanda. And Mom. They were sitting around the table like they'd been waiting for me. "Nice of you to show up," Amanda said, arms crossed. "I'm here for the stager," I said. "You should all go." Mom stood. "We need to talk." "No, you need to listen," I said, my voice steady. This isn't your house. It never was. You never asked, you just assumed. And I let it slide because I thought maybe, it was my way of giving something back. But now I realize, giving only works when the other person doesn't think they deserve it. That's not fair, Zach said. We've always appreciated it. Really? I pulled out my phone and opened his Instagram page. What about this post from last July? Another weekend at our lake house. Thanks, Nate. You called it our house. You made a joke out of my name. You made me the punchline. That was a joke, he snapped. No, I said. It was a preview. He stared at me. Of what? Of what happens when you let people walk all over you for years and finally stop. Amanda stood now too. You're ruining this family over what? Money. No, I said. I'm saving myself from a family that thinks love is a line item on a receipt. The stager arrived 20 minutes later. By then, they were gone. The house was quiet. I walked room to room, answering questions, pointing out details. But something didn't sit right. There was a tension in my chest, a knot that wouldn't untie. That night, I got a text from my cousin Leah. She's one of the few relatives I still speak to regularly. Practical, grounded, always honest. Hey, just a heads up. Zach's telling people you're evicting the family. He said you only bought the place to hold it over everyone's heads. Mom heard it from Aunt Sandy. I stared at the screen. Evicting the family. Like I was the villain in some twisted little family fairy tale. It wasn't just disrespect anymore. It was sabotage. A narrative he was spinning to cast himself as the victim and me as the greedy brother who couldn't share. And judging by the messages I started getting from other relatives, some subtle, some not, I knew the smear campaign had taken root. That was when it hit me. They weren't just ungrateful. They were rewriting the story. And if I didn't act carefully, I'd become the villain in everyone's version of it. I closed my phone, sat in the dark, and let the weight of it all settle in my chest. But that weight? It wasn't going to break me. It was going to anchor me. Because now, I knew this wasn't just about a house. This was about taking everything they thought they owned, my kindness, my silence, my peace, and taking it back. And what happened next? That's where everything changed. I didn't realize how deep it went until I opened my email the next morning and found a message from an old friend I hadn't spoken to in years. Hey Nate, didn't know what was going on with you and your family, but just saw Zach's Facebook post. If you need to talk, I'm here. I blinked. Facebook? I hadn't checked in weeks. I barely used it. But when I logged in, the first thing I saw was Zach's post, already shared and commented on by half the extended family. A picture of him and Mom, standing on the lake house dock with the sun setting behind them. Amanda had clearly staged the shot. They were holding hands with the kids between them like a Hallmark movie. The caption? After 2 beautiful summers, our time at the family lake house is being cut short. It breaks my heart that money means more than memories now. But I guess some people never learned what family really means. Hundreds of likes. Dozens of comments. My aunt wrote, I'm so sorry, sweetie. You guys deserve better. A cousin added, that's disgusting. What kind of person kicks their own mother out of her vacation home? Even people I didn't know were chiming in. Strangers. Facebook friends of friends. Offering sympathy. Offering support. For him. I sat there, stunned, scrolling through comment after comment, watching my own name get dragged like I was some greedy corporate villain. And the worst part? They believed him. Because Zach had always been the charming one. The relatable one. The one who told stories that made people feel something, even when none of it was real. That was the moment I hit bottom. Not when they took advantage of me. Not when they refused to pay a dime. Not even when Mom used Dad's name like a knife. It was now, being publicly rewritten into the antagonist in my own life. I didn't eat much that day. Barely got off the couch. I remember thinking, why even bother? What's the point of doing things right when this is what you get? I wasn't just angry. I was disoriented. Like my whole life had been flipped upside down and handed back to me in a version I didn't recognize. I thought I'd earned peace, the kind that comes from keeping your head down, doing the right thing, building a life on your own terms. But now I realized, people like Zach don't respect what you build. They only care about what they can use. And the more generous you are, the more disposable you become. That weekend, I canceled all showings for the lake house. Not because I changed my mind, but because I didn't want them back in it while it was still mine. I drained the water lines, changed the smart lock codes, and told the agent I needed more time. I was going to do this on my schedule, not theirs. A few days later, I sat down at my desk and pulled out a blank notebook. Not a laptop, not my phone, a notebook, old school. And at the top of the page, I wrote a single question. Who do I want to be, now that I'm no longer who they think I am? It was such a simple thing, but it cracked something open. Because for most of my life, I'd been reacting to them, trying to prove something, trying to earn their respect with my success, my stability, my ability to keep things together. And all I'd done was give them the perfect scapegoat, the responsible one, the rich one, The one who'd pay the bill, smile through the insult, and show up to clean the mess. So I stopped reacting. I started designing. The first thing I did was take a 2-week solo trip up north, farther than the lake house, deeper into Michigan. Rented a cabin on a bluff, no Wi-Fi, barely any cell service. I hiked. I read. I journaled. I made firewood runs and talked to no one. I didn't check email once. And something strange happened on the 6th day. I laughed. Out loud. Not because of a joke or a meme or a conversation, but because I realized I hadn't heard anyone else's voice in nearly a week, and I didn't miss it. When I got back home, I set some hard boundaries. I blocked Zach on everything. Not muted. Not unfollowed. Blocked. I deleted Facebook. I put Mom's texts on silent and told her via email. That until further notice, I needed space. Please do not contact me unless it's an emergency, I wrote. I'm not angry. I'm healing. She didn't reply, but I knew she read it. She was always quick with the silent treatment when she didn't get her way. The next few weeks were quiet. Too quiet, honestly. I'd spent so long with one ear tuned for disaster. The silence felt suspicious. But I used it. I started going to therapy. I didn't want to. The idea of spilling my family drama to a stranger felt self-indulgent. But a friend convinced me, and to my surprise, it worked. My therapist didn't try to fix me. She didn't judge. She just asked questions I'd never thought to ask myself. Why do you think it's your job to hold the family together? What happens if you let them misunderstand you? What do you actually want? Not what you think will keep the peace. That last one hit hard. Because for years, I'd thought peace came from avoidance, from swallowing my pride and letting things slide. But real peace? It's the kind that doesn't depend on anyone else's behavior. So I made changes. I unfroze projects I'd been putting off. Reached out to old business contacts. Started mentoring again, not for money, just to pay it forward. I rewrote my will. Updated my estate plan. Made sure nothing I owned would ever end up in Zach's hands, or Amanda's, or anyone who thought love was transactional. And I did something that felt small, but meant everything. I bought a new mug. I know that sounds ridiculous, but hear me out. For years, I'd used this chipped white mug that said Best Brother on it. A cheap thing Zach gave me when I graduated college. I kept it all this time, thinking it meant something. But I looked at it one morning, and all I saw was a lie. So I threw it out, and bought a heavy, handmade mug from a local artisan that simply read, Enough. That word sat in my hands every morning after that, warm with coffee, and reminded me. I didn't need to earn anyone's approval. I didn't need to prove my worth. I had enough. I was enough. A month passed. Then 2. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd let it go. But of course, they didn't. Because the thing about entitled people, they don't let go. They regroup. And when I got the letter from the family attorney, I knew round 2 was about to begin. Because they weren't just upset now. They were planning something. And whatever it was, it would make the dinner bill look like pocket change. The letter came in a nondescript manila envelope, hand-delivered by a courier who didn't know my name and didn't ask for a signature. Just handed it off like it was a pizza, nodded, and left. I opened it on the kitchen counter with the kind of casual disinterest you have when you expect to see junk mail or one of those fake checks from a car dealership. But inside were 2 neatly folded pages on thick letterhead paper. Legal letterhead. My stomach sank before I even read the first line. Dear Mr. Nathan Blake, it has come to our attention that there is a dispute involving the use and ownership claims regarding the property located at Lakeview Drive. I stopped reading, not because it was too painful, because I had to set the paper down and breathe. They were going after the house. The same house I bought, maintained, paid taxes on. The same one they'd never once contributed to, financially or otherwise. And now, they'd retained a lawyer, a family friend, no less, to argue that the home had become family property through implied communal use and contribution. In other words, you let us use it, so now we want a legal piece of it. It was an absurd claim, but it was also strategic. Because the one thing people like Zach understand instinctively is that you don't need to be right to cause damage. You just need to be loud, annoying, and persistent. You just need to drag someone through enough mud that they either give up or snap. And if he thought I was the same quiet brother who'd just sigh, pay the dinner bill, and keep the peace, he was about to find out how much I'd changed. That night, I poured myself a drink, not out of stress, but ritual. Sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and got to work. First step, documentation. I spent the next 4 hours digging up everything. Closing documents, tax receipts, utility bills, home insurance policies, screenshots of every text and email that mentioned their stays, photos from the first walkthrough, contracts with the contractor who'd renovated the deck, a receipt from the furniture store in 2022, $4, $200 for the outdoor sectional Amanda claimed just magically appeared on the patio. I even pulled my digital calendar from the last 3 years, highlighting every weekend they'd stayed, noting the overlaps with times I wasn't there, times I'd lent it out, for free, to people who didn't have the courtesy to leave it clean. Second step, allies. I wasn't alone, and I didn't want to be. So I called Leah. If you remember, she's my cousin, my mom's sister's daughter. A few years older than me. Works in finance. Sharp as a blade and never drank the family Kool-Aid. We'd grown closer over the years, bonded by the fact that we both knew exactly how suffocating family expectations could be. I gave her the rundown. She was quiet at first. Then, they lawyered up over a house they don't own. Apparently, I said. She whistled. That's bold. Even for Zach. It's not about the house, I said. It's about control. About keeping the narrative in their hands. She was silent again for a beat, then said, Want me to help you ruin them? I laughed. And then, more seriously, not ruin. Just remind. So Leah put me in touch with a real estate attorney she trusted. A guy named Ben who looked like a dad, but argued like a pit bull. Within 3 days, Ben had filed a formal response denying all claims, listing every documented expense, and preemptively requesting court sanctions if the case escalated due to frivolous action. In legal terms, try me. But even as the law side of things got handled, I knew this was bigger than court documents. This was about shifting the balance of power. About setting a boundary so firm that it couldn't be softened by guilt, nostalgia, or manipulation. So I went further. Third step, clean house, digitally. I combed through every shared account, every lingering password. They didn't have much access, never did. But I'd helped Mom set up her banking app once, and I vaguely remembered Amanda asking for the Netflix login just for the weekend. No more. I changed every password, deleted every shared doc, removed every photo of the lake house from my socials. Not to erase the memories, but to reclaim them. My memories, not their propaganda. And then came the part one enjoyed most. Fourth step, the summer letter. Every year, around mid-May, my family had this tradition. Someone, usually Zach or Mom, would send out an email blast titled Lake House Summer Schedule, asking everyone to claim weekends so things didn't get double booked. It was treated like a sacred institution. They even had color-coded spreadsheets. Amanda once got into an argument with a cousin over Labor Day weekend like it was a timeshare. This time, I sent the email. Subject line, Lake House Update, 2026 season. No hi family. No smiley face. Just 3 clean paragraphs. Effective June 15th, the property on Lakeview Drive will be placed on the market for private sale. I will no longer be accepting guest requests or visits of any kind. Please note, any claim of ownership or entitlement to the property is legally unfounded. Attempts to enter or use the property without my consent will be treated as trespassing and handled accordingly. Wishing you all the best this summer. I didn't sign it, love, Nathan. I didn't end with, thanks for understanding. I wasn't interested in cushioning the blow anymore. I'd spent too long softening my own truth to make theirs more comfortable. Within minutes, the replies started rolling in. Zach, what the hell is this? Are you serious? Mom, Nathan, I am begging you. Can we just talk? Amanda, wow. So this is who you are now? Cold and cruel. You'll die alone, just so you know. I stared at the screen. Let them all pile up. Then closed my laptop and went outside. The air was cool. The wind was sharp. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel heavy. I didn't feel torn between loyalty and self-respect. I didn't feel like I owed anyone a version of myself that made them feel better about theirs. And that clarity? It gave me the boldest idea yet. Because if they wanted to make a public mess of me, maybe it was time I showed them what I could do in public, too. Not with drama. Not with rage. But with precision. With control. With the truth. Delivered the way I'd always delivered everything in my life. Clean. Calculated. And absolutely unforgettable. And what I did next? Let's just say, they never saw it coming. The revenge wasn't loud. It didn't involve shouting matches, slammed doors, or dramatic courtroom scenes with people gasping in a gallery. That's not my style. Revenge, when done right, is quiet. It's slow. It's surgical. You don't need to draw blood. You just need to pull the rug gently enough that they fall face first in front of everyone they try to impress. And so that's what I did. It started with the sale. I listed the lake house privately, no public MLS. I worked directly with my attorney and a high-end agent Leah recommended who specialized in off-market luxury properties. We prepped everything. Legal disclaimers, no access clauses, and an ironclad buyer agreement that made it crystal clear the property came with no previous tenants, traditions, or emotional attachments. Within 2 weeks, we had a buyer, a retired couple from Chicago looking for a peaceful getaway. They offered above asking. I accepted. Zach found out through a neighbor, the one who'd rented them a boat every 4th of July. Apparently, he showed up to grab the pontoon boat like usual and was told, "Oh, I heard the Blake sold the place. Didn't know you still had keys. He didn't. But that didn't stop him from calling me. I didn't answer. He left 3 voicemails, each angrier than the last. The third one, his voice cracked, not from sadness, but from disbelief. Like he couldn't wrap his head around the fact that I'd actually done it. That I'd taken something he thought belonged to him and reminded him, decisively, that it never did. He wasn't the only one unraveling. Amanda posted a passive-aggressive story on Instagram that made its way to me via Leah. A picture of a rocky shore, gray clouds overhead. Text: some people would burn paradise just to watch it fall. Sure, Amanda. A week after closing, the new owners moved in. I left them a gift basket, a handwritten card, and a long list of local recommendations. I never once mentioned the family. They didn't need that baggage. But the house? The house was finally free. And so was I. Then came the next step. Remember how Zach tried to drag me into a legal mess? How he fabricated this idea that the lake house had become shared family property? Well, the court dismissed the claim before it ever made it to a hearing, because Ben, my attorney, filed a preemptive motion to dismiss that was so airtight, the judge didn't even require a meeting. But that wasn't enough for me. I wanted to make sure Zach couldn't pull this stunt again, with anyone. So I filed a countersuit. Not for money, but for slander. The Facebook post, the messages he sent to relatives, the emails Amanda forwarded around to paint me as unstable. We documented everything. Leah helped me put it all in a file. Dates, screenshots, timestamps, even deleted posts, because the internet never forgets. The claim? That Zach's coordinated campaign had caused reputational harm, emotional distress, and potential business consequences. Because while I'm not active on Facebook, a few of our mutual contacts are in my industry, and one of them had flagged the drama. Zach's lawyer called Ben and tried to play it cool. It's a family matter. Can't we settle this quietly? Ben's response: you should have called before filing fraudulent claims of ownership. My client is generous, but not forgetful. The suit never made it to court either. Zach backed down and signed a formal apology letter, drafted by Ben, acknowledging that his posts were inaccurate, emotionally driven, and potentially misleading. He agreed to delete them all. He agreed to never publicly discuss the house again. But best of all, he had to send a copy of the signed apology to every single person he'd originally sent lies to. Every relative, every group chat, every Facebook thread. And let me tell you, watching that paper trail flip was delicious. Suddenly, the aunts and cousins who'd messaged me coldly months earlier were checking in, acting confused, saying things like, we didn't know the full story. One even had the gall to ask, are you going to buy a new summer house we can visit sometime? I didn't reply. I was done teaching grown adults how to respect boundaries. But the part one hadn't expected, the part that shook me, came 3 weeks later, in the form of a handwritten letter. From my mom. It wasn't long. Just 1 page. Her handwriting was still as neat and practiced as it had been when I was a kid. She always wrote like she was addressing a teacher. Nathan, I don't know if this will reach you. I understand if it doesn't matter to you anymore. I want to say I'm sorry. I was angry. Not because you sold the house, but because I think I knew you were really done. And I didn't want to face that. I didn't want to admit that I hadn't earned the grace you gave me for so long. Your father always made me feel like nothing I did was enough. And when you became the one who was, I guess I didn't know how to treat you without putting that same pressure on you. I won't ask for anything. I just wanted you to know. I see it now. I see you. Mom. I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it up and put it in a drawer. I wasn't ready to respond. Maybe I never would be. But there was one last thing I needed to do. Closure. I booked another trip north, past where the lake house used to sit. I didn't tell anyone. I brought that enough mug, a thermos of black coffee, and nothing else but a journal. I sat on the edge of a bluff, legs dangling over a drop that had swallowed 1,000 years of storms, and watched the sun rise over the trees. And I thought about who I'd been. The boy who tried too hard. The man who gave too much. The brother who stayed silent while everyone else made noise. But most of all, I thought about the moment I stood up from that dinner table, dropped the $2,000 check, and told them the truth. Not just about the house. About me. And in that moment, I realized something. They never really lost the house. They lost access to me. And that was priceless.